I'm not sure I've ever seen a time where in any time of my life, any sort of government body has helped me as a car enthusiast. I just don't think it's humanly possible. Kei Trucks are getting banned, and the reasoning is, yes, absolutely ridiculous. Now, I don't own a Kei truck. I never have, and I really, really want to. But I've stayed really close to this situation for about 5 to 6 months now because the outreach of people talking about this is reaching all-time highs. If you didn't know, new news just came out that Massachusetts is outright banning any single Kei truck, revoking titles, not allowing any sort of expired tags to come back to the front. And the reasoning and how they're actually enforcing this is like somebody who doesn't even know what a Kei truck is. So we're going to be talking about it today. My name's Alex. I'm AlexMartini, which, by the way, in terms of the amount of times I've ever seen a government body help me as a car enthusiast, it's approximately jack. I don't know what it is. I've never seen it work in my favor. And this is another situation where I'm just not entirely sure this is going the right way. And the thing that bothers me about this entire situation is how it's being enforced. Because if you don't know how to connect the dots, it looks like it's multiple separate bodies that are making this decision when really it's one. And it's not even a governing body. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, I'm gonna give you a little backstory on what a Kei truck is, along with where they came from and how they got so popular. A lot of people think Kei trucks came in all the way back in like the 80s or 90s, but they've actually been coming into the United States since the 1930s and 40s. They were originally called San-Rin, and they were originally just three-wheeled motorcycles that had a sort of covered top on it. Now, over time, these have gotten relatively popular. They had a brief pause in the early 40s. I can't really understand why. And then they got back to being popular in the 50s, 60s, and all the way up until the 90s. The biggest thing to remember with Kei trucks, everything pretty much seems to work off a progressive tax system in Japan. And what that means, especially with vehicles, is over time, the longer you own something, the more taxes you're going to have to pay on that thing. In addition to that, there are taxes that companies will incur by holding on to assets or things that take up space over time as well. And so as companies like Mitsubishi or Toyota or Honda made these tiny little Kei trucks and cars, particularly in Japan, if they had any sort of surplus at the end of the year, a lot of times those things or vehicles would get exported. And the places where they get exported to were countries like Australia and countries like the United States. So much so that they became really popular as just farm trucks, little haulers that you could take to and from across the road without having to worry too much about buying an ATV or UTV, because those just weren't really as good back then. They didn't have a bed that you could throw things in. And over in Japan, Kei trucks were used for a mountain of different things. They were used as ambulances in some point. They were used as general agriculture. They were used in fisheries. They were used in construction zones and construction sites. Well-purposed, tiny little truck. And life was simple. I'll get into that here in just a little bit. Now, after I learned that Massachusetts had gone through this outright banning phase, I really wanted to figure out why this came to be, because there should be something out there at the federal level that says, hey, if something is older than 25 years, you get a free pass. Get out of jail free card. You can import whatever you want, because guess what? It's old and we don't really care if you die. That, for me as a car enthusiast, was exactly what I wanted. Give me the accountability and the responsibility of paying for an overpriced rust bucket Nissan that I know is gonna fall apart, but it doesn't matter because it's got 4 taillights. That is what I want from my government. The rule that you're probably gonna hear me talk about is that 25-year rule. This thing came into effect not because of Toyota, not because of Nissan, not because of Mitsubishi, but most people believe, myself included, that it came from Mercedes-Benz. It's a really interesting story. As importing, especially gray market vehicles, became popular in the 70s and 80s, it was because of the inflation rate of the American dollar. You could take that dollar, you could convert it into yen, or you could convert it into the European or Deutsche Mark for Germany, and you could get a much better vehicle for a much lower price as long as you're willing to pay somebody to import the car. And because there wasn't a whole lot of regulation around this in the late 70s and early 80s, anybody that was savvy enough to know that they could get a car from another country ended up doing so. Cars like the Mercedes-Benz 500 SEL, the Mercedes-Benz 280S. You got horsepower, you got quality, and you got it for a deal, a good old deal. It's like my mom always said, never pay full price for anything. These people didn't, because in 1980, about 1,500 cars or so would be imported into the United States under its gray market rule. By 1985, that number had skyrocketed to 60,000 imported vehicles, 20,000 of them still being exclusively Mercedes-Benz. This became a huge issue because this was an estimated impact to Mercedes of $300 million in the company's American arm of doing business. Why would you go to a Mercedes-Benz dealer and pay 30% more when you can just hire a company to import one for you for a fraction of the cost? Mercedes spent millions on lobbying against gray market imports, so much so that eventually they won. Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, and Ferrari were all some of the top most excited and highest lobbying manufacturers to push this forward because it helped them out the most. And what ended up happening was a new rule. In 1988, the Imported Vehicle Safety Compliance Act got put into effect. We're going to call that the 25-year rule. That's the rule that you know, that I know, and that's the reason there's a yellow R34 sitting right there in front of me without the emissions it needs, but that's mostly because I live in Wisconsin, and Wisconsin's awesome, unlike some other states. Not going to go into specific California states that would make that a problem. But the key thing to keep in mind is that this law, or this compliance act, is a federal act. It's at the government country level, and it was imposed to the states for them to do whatever else they wanted to do. But as long as the federal got to say it needed to be 25 years, the rest was up to the states. And this is where Nikki Batchelder, I'm just going to put the name right here, from Maine comes into the limelight of why Kei Trucks are getting banned right now. Now, because of the Imported Vehicle Safety Compliance Act, that bypassed the federal motor vehicle safety standards. That's the safety belts, that's the emission stuff, that's all of that good stuff. And everything was fine. Now, why Nikki is important to this conversation, you're gonna have to put your tin hats on, and I'm sorry that I keep making you grab them, but you just need to trust me on this. Nikki is the Director of Vehicle Services in Maine, one of the first states to outright ban Kei Trucks. She also happens to be the supervisor for the registration section of the AAMVA. AAMVA, there's so many acronyms. I'm not gonna quiz you I am gonna quiz you at the end. I'm quizzing you in the comments right now, so you better be paying. Look at me. Stop looking down. I don't know what you're doing. Welcome back. Okay, the AAMVA, the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators. The AAMVA is a tax-exempt, not-profit organization. They develop model programs in motor vehicle administration, law enforcement, and highway safety. These folks, I would put them in the same group of, they're the people you call in between the state and the federal law. They kind of come in and they tell states what they recommend, what they think you should do. They're that annoying Karen that just wants to give their opinion on everything, even if nobody asks. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people ask the AAMVA on their opinion, which is why a bunch of states are essentially partnered with the AAMVA to help them make decisions on their laws, because apparently states need help. And what they had recommended just a few short years ago is banning mini trucks in its entirety as a part of its regulation of off-road vehicles and best practices. Now, because the AAMVA is a part of recommending best practices to states through the digestion of this federal junk, a lot of states are saying, yes, we will enforce whatever you recommend because we don't want to do our own research. And so the moment that this recommendation came out, would you like to know which state was the first ones to ban Kei Trucks? I'll give you a second. Maine. You did it. Congratulations. So did I. You know how long it took for me to find this information? Texas and Massachusetts and Rhode Island and New York and Pennsylvania and Georgia and Michigan are all going through this issue of trying to enforce this recommended policy from the AAMVA to ban Kei Trucks, but they don't even know what a Kei Truck is. This is the craziest part. Every car built before 1980 could be illegal in Massachusetts because the way that they wrote the ruling for the law is so ass backwards. And then people that have a Kei truck or people that have something from 1976 that doesn't have a 17-digit VIN, they're saying, no, you can't register that. My Datsun didn't have a 17-digit VIN because it was from 1976. I'm pretty sure it was 11 digits. My car would not be allowed to currently be registered in the state of Massachusetts because it doesn't have a 17-digit VIN. That is how some of these states are passing this law right now, which is pissing off everyone, and rightfully so. People that own Kei trucks, people that own imported vehicles, people that have gone through the trouble of doing this right and doing this legal are now getting told by Nancy Sue, who's 87 years old and smells like whipped cream cheese that has been left out of the fridge for 17 hours at a local DMV, that they can't register their vehicle because it doesn't have the right amount of numbers for their VIN. There's a couple reasons why I'm talking about this, and I don't know if you guys care about this as much as I do, but there's 3 things that really bug me about it. Number 1, the laws that are getting enforced are ridiculously vague, insanely vague. The one thing that I like to know about the law when I'm breaking it, when I'm going 70 in a 65, is that the speed limit was 65. And if I'm going 92 in the 430 because I'm late to a car show, I know when I get pulled over that it's my ass. But because this thing is so vague, states and the people that own them have no idea what to do. Few states say they're illegal, so DMVs will just make up sometimes whether a vehicle can be registered or not registered. The second reason this really bugs me is it selectively chooses safety with no regard to other people or other vehicles. They're saying it's not safe. There's motorcycles that are out there on the road blasting with their Harleys and straight piped Harley Davidson and Morgan Wallen music just blasting at 80 on the highway. And those are fine, right? Because the driver is taking a known liable risk in driving a motorcycle, riding a motorcycle. That's why they have a special license. That's why they can do what they can do. So when a state says, no, we don't want a Kei truck on the road because it's not safe, even though the 25-year rule is out there, we just don't think it's safe enough. But hey, a 16-year-old can go buy a liter bike if their dad makes a lot of money, and as long as they got the license, go send them. That part makes literally no sense to me. It's the same reason that I am blown away at the fact that my wife can drive a C4500 iron hide truck that's like 10 tons, kind of. With a commercial license, I may be with weight, but still, you can buy that. You can drive, I could drive that. And you're telling me that that's okay, but buying a $3,500 mini truck isn't, because Nikki from Maine was one of the 17 people that decided to write a little article together that says all things imported that do not make the NHTSA safety recommendations should not be allowed on public roads. I think that is really which goes into the third reason why I think this is a big deal. I don't like the government telling me what to do, okay? Am I 16 or am I 60? The world may never know. What's going on with my hair? I'm not entirely sure either. Only a couple states seem to be fighting back against this. You've got Texas that beat the AAMVA recommendations, which are just that, recommendations. They're not laws. They're not required to follow those laws. They're just recommendations. North Carolina fought back because that's North Carolina's thing. Credit to Rhode Island trying to advocate to get some of these Kei trucks at least registered. But here's the thing, they're only doing it for the Kei trucks that are already currently registered. There are some states that are saying, hey, it was once registered, it's no longer going to be, which means you can no longer drive it on public roads. Like the givesies backsies of it to me just seem asinine. There's only 7,500 Kei trucks that got imported into the United States last year, a couple years ago. That is not a big enough number, in my opinion, to cause all this riffraff. There are millions of F-350s that are getting sold to people that shouldn't be getting sold to because they just want to have something that's big and large and wide. That doesn't even go into the fact that some of these training materials that people are talking about in terms of what defines a Kei truck are just wrong. Honda Acti truck van, Daihatsu Hijet, Suzuki Carry, Mazda minicab truck, a Mazda porter cab, and a Isuzu mini truck, a Nissan Clipper, but only those. But there could be more, but there could not be more. But maybe there is. But maybe there isn't. I'm not the kind of guy to say that when you open a door a little bit, it goes all the way open and then you have the tomfoolery that is the 2024 political season. I'm not that kind of guy. I like cars. I like building them. I like talking about stories with you. And I think this is fun. We're having fun, right? So you can let me know if you agree in the comments below. But the part that kills me is that when you get these laws introduced that are based on recommendations, where the recommendations themselves aren't clearly defined or outlined or have data backing them with some sort of control test, with some sort of fact or figure, what the hell are you doing? It's just your opinion at this point, and it's impacting hundreds of thousands of enthusiasts across the country. I think that's an overstep. I think that's really silly and borderline stupid. There's a difference in saying, hey, if you have a Kei truck, you can't be on the highway, and if we catch you on the highway, we're gonna pull you over, or we're gonna give you a ticket. That's one thing. There's another thing in saying, hey, if you have a Kei truck, you have to have a license for it, similar to a motorcycle. Okay, little bit of a extra step, but I'll take it. But to just outright recommend banning them entirely without giving any clear justification as to why, outside of the fact that they're not safe, is silly, it's stupid, and it leaves the interpretation of that entire recommendation to people I don't even trust driving their own car. I've seen those people that are making those decisions, and I've watched them try to buy groceries and try to navigate the internet and try to reset a router. I don't need them telling me what I can or can't drive, which is why this Kei Trucks situation is absolutely ridiculous. But I would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you like this style of video, let me know, because I don't really know what I'm doing. Be sure to subscribe. Let me know if there's a topic you want to talk about. If you want to follow me over on Instagram, where I get a lot of these topics from y'all, you can do it over at alex.martini with 2 underscores. I'm Alex Martini. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you on the next one. Goodbye. Hey!